We just got back from our 3.5-week trip to Vietnam, and in today's video, I want to talk to you about everything you need to know about taking a trip to Vietnam and how much you can expect it to cost you. So before we get into this, I'm going to talk about how much the costs were first, because I think that's of interest to most people. As I mentioned in a previous video, before you take a trip, you have to think about, okay, why am I going to Vietnam in the first place? There are a lot of people who responded to us when we said we're going to Vietnam, and they said, well, why would you go there? And there are a lot of people who are of my generation who have very bad memories of it, or significant memories of it, whether they served there or not during the Vietnamese War. By the way, in Vietnam, it's known as the American War. Anyway, and people say, gosh, I lost friends there, and it's a place I never really want to go back to. And I understand that, and I can respect that. But whether you were there before, 40 years ago, or not, Vietnam is a wonderful country. It's a beautiful country. The people are very warm and friendly. It's very nice, and it's reasonably affordable. And I would urge people to go there. So you have to answer those questions yourself, but we really enjoyed it, and I think it's a place that you should go to, and it's really opening up. Keep your think of your expectations. Do not expect that this is it is a developing nation, but it is not what you might think. It is a very prosperous and burgeoning economy. There you'll see in the major cities lots of skyscrapers and hustle and bustle, and it's yes, there of course is a rural economy, but you'll be very pleased, and the infrastructure is very well put together, and there's nice places to stay and resorts and so forth. So you will really enjoy your trip. Okay, so you've decided that you're going to go there. So you want to think about, okay, how do I go? Do I go in a group, some kind of an organized trip, or do I do it independently by myself? And that's a question you have to understand, ask yourself. And again, it gets back to what's your style? Know yourself. What do you enjoy the most? There are a lot of great Vietnam tours that I noticed online that hit the major hot spots, highlights of Vietnam, and everything's taken care of for you, and they appear to be very efficient, and you'll probably have a great time that way. Tanya and I, while we will take individual tours when we're in locations, we prefer, for the most part, to do it on our own, just simply because it gives us more freedom. We can decide, okay, where are we going to go? If this didn't work out, should we go here instead? That sort of thing. Gives us more flexibility. Plus, we just don't like the idea sometimes of being in a group where, it's like, okay, here's where we're staying tonight, and okay, we're stopping here for lunch, and be sure and get back on the bus or in the van in 30 minutes, and you have 25 minutes free time and that kind of stuff. That's just not for us. So know who you are, but you can do it either way. Okay. What I want to talk about is first are the costs, what it cost us and what you can reasonably expect to spend on a trip to Vietnam. And then after that, I'll go into the second part, which is the nuts and bolts of how you would organize, how would you arrange an independent trip to Vietnam on your own. Okay, first of all, the costs. We were gone for 25 days. But 4 of those were spent traveling, so on airplanes, and so we don't really count those. So we were actually 21 nights in Vietnam. Okay, so I'm just going to give you the totals that we spent in the 5 major categories that I always use for budgeting. For accommodation, for 21 nights, we spent a total of $2,987. That works out to about $142 per night for the 2 of us. Now, you can get by much less expensively than that if you choose. And some of our numbers were really pumped up by a very nice hotel in Phu Quoc, which was over $300 a night. So that really pumped it up. But you could really cut back on those things if you wanted to. So it works out, like I said, about $142 a night for the couple. Okay, food and drink. We spent $1,369. That works out to about a little less than $55 a day. That's pretty reasonable. You can do much cheaper than that if you only eat street food or in little places here and there. But we ate very well and had some very nice dinners, and so that worked out to about $55 a day for the two of us. Transport was $435. That included flights within the country, train, and taxis. Now, getting around in Vietnam, you can do it three ways. There's either the train, bus, or flying, and we took both train and flying simply because it was more efficient to get from one place to the other. I understand their buses are very nice, but it does take time, and it was just our own preference. The cost is going to be almost the same, probably a little bit more if you're flying, but train and plane is fairly comparable. Entertainment, we spent $1,227, but you wouldn't need to spend that much. What I included in that was that Ha Long Bay trip, so you can do Ha Long Bay cruises more inexpensively than we did. And then $234 for miscellaneous, and that we count tips, massages, pedicures, that sort of thing. So our grand total was $6,253. So for two people divided by 21 days, that works out to about $298 a day for two people. Now, you could shave off a lot of that expense. Know what kind of traveler you are. Now, if we generally are middle of the range to occasional luxury travelers, but we did a lot of luxury on this one simply because it was affordable to do that. If you wanted to cut back on things, your accommodations, instead of spending almost $3,000 like we did, you could cut that essentially in half. Although we did spend some nights, very nice hotel for $24 a night, another very nice hotel for a couple of nights for $50 a night, but then that got counteracted by couple of these really expensive places we stayed. Food and drink, okay, you could probably cut back on that a little bit. You could maybe get that to $1,100. Transport is going to be about the same. I'm leaving that at $435. Entertainment, you could really cut back on that if you wanted to, and I suppose you could do it for maybe $300. And then miscellaneous, I cut it back to $200. So you could conceivably take this trip in pretty comfortable style for a little more than $3,500 for two people. Divided by 21, that's $168 a day for the couple. So that gives you an idea of what you can expect to pay. Okay, now the second part here, I want to go through what's the process you're going to take when you've decided to go to Vietnam. What do you do? Okay, and you're going independently. You're not going as a group. So you got to figure this out. Okay, what do I need to do? Well, first of all, you need a visa. They make their system very easy online. You get a 30-day visa to visit. I don't know what it takes if you're going to be longer than that. I've heard that you have to make a visa run to Cambodia or maybe Thailand or something like that to extend that beyond 30 days. If you have any insight on that, please note it in the comments below. But we were there on a 30-day visa. We got it online before we left. Cost $25 each. Very reasonable. And I was very impressed with the online system that Vietnam immigration uses. When you look for Vietnam visa on there, be sure that you do it directly with the Vietnam government itself. You can go through a third party and there'll be lots of vendors that'll be, that'll easy visa through us, and so on and so forth. But you pay, sometimes $79 each instead of $25. And basically, they're doing exactly the same that you're going to do, and you can just do it yourself. And it's very simple. The most complicated part is just simply filling out the form, where you have to upload a picture of yourself onto their form and a picture of your passport. But very simple, get it sent off. Within 3 days, we got a response back that had been approved, and then you have this printed paper that shows that you have that visa. Now, when you land in Vietnam, you're going to land in either Hanoi or in Ho Chi Minh City, Saigon. Those are the two primary air points of entry into Vietnam. When you go through border control, have that piece of paper, that visa, printed out ahead of time and carry it with you. Because when we went through border control, they did ask for it. And fortunately, I had it right there and I could show it to them. Now, I did talk to some people that had it, but they were never asked for it. So, sometimes it's luck of the draw. But to play it safe, I'd go ahead and print it out ahead of time and do it that way, so you have it. Okay, then we planned our hotels ahead of time. So I'm kind of an obsessive guy, so I have a spreadsheet and I kind of planned it out as if I was a travel agent, especially because this was not a long-term trip, 3.5 weeks, where I would have a lot of leeway to, change my mind. So I had it blocked out. I knew, okay, we're going to stay at this hotel in Saigon for 4 nights while we rest up. After that long trip, we're going to spend 2 nights here, 2 nights there, so forth, and how we're going to do that. So I had all of this planned ahead of time, which, a lot of people, just like to wing it. Sometimes I feel more comfortable if we plan this ahead of time. Okay, so I booked our hotel in Saigon directly through the hotel itself. I went to booking.com first to find out what were the best hotels or the logical hotels to stay at where I wanted to be. You can also do that through TripAdvisor. If you're going to Vietnam for the first time and you're going to be in Saigon for the first time, I would stay in District 1, which is right in the center. It's close to the Opera House, the Reunification Palace, all of the major sites that you would want to see, and that's where the bulk of the nice to very nice hotels are. And when I say nice, we stayed at the Grand Hotel Saigon for $129 a night, and it's a 5-star hotel. You don't need to stay in a 5-star hotel. You can do much better than that, but why not? For that price, it was worth it to us. So, and we went direct to their website and got some kind of a package deal, and for 4 nights, and they had includes breakfast and a very nice buffet breakfast, and anyway, so that's a good way to do that. If you don't use Booking.com, another good one is Agoda, if you haven't used them before for booking hotels. And then, of course, Expedia or some of the other well-known sites. Okay, so we knew where we were going to stay. Okay, just logically, you've gone through border control, you've got your luggage, and you're ready to go to your hotel. Okay, how do you do it? What's the best way to do it? Well, the best way is a taxi, is a car. I guess I've heard there are buses, but it's probably not worth the hassle. I can't remember exactly what it cost to get to the hotel, but it wasn't more than $10. What we did this time is that we pre-booked our transportation, our driver, to take us from the airport to the hotel. You don't need to do that. We did that through Booking.com, and they have a cool little service where you can do that, and you know ahead of time how much it's going to cost. It's already billed to your credit card, and many times it's most of the time, it's very cost effective to do it that way. The driver shows up, assuming you've coordinated properly. Sometimes that loses something, but he usually is there with your name on a sign, and off you go. The other way is, if you didn't do it that way, at the airport in Ho Chi Minh City, it's very simple. You just go out through arrivals there. There's a taxi line there, and you get in line and take the taxi and off you go. And they're all metered, and there's probably some that aren't, so you just be careful, make sure they're metered, and there you go. Another way to do it is if your hotel or wherever your accommodation is providing airport transportation, but you usually pay a premium for that, and unless it's free, then I would do it the way we did it, either pre-booking it and or just going out in the taxi line. Now, once you get into Vietnam or into the city, or even prior to that, what I would get is a SIM card for your phone. We didn't get a SIM card because we have a T-Mobile International plan for our phone, so we don't need to do that. But if you want to have a Vietnam phone number while you're there, sometimes it makes it easier, but we didn't have any trouble at all just using our American number that's part of our plan. One of the apps that you want to download is Grab, G-R-A-B. Grab is probably the biggest ride-sharing service, and you download the app on your phone, and you're good to go. And you don't need a Vietnamese phone number for that. We used our American number. You might want to check sometimes. Using Grab can be more expensive than if you're just getting in a regular taxi. Also, a big part of Grab's business is riding on the back of a motorbike. So if you're not excited about doing that, or if it's raining, then you make sure it'll say on there whether you're on a Grab motorbike or you're in a Grab car. But that's Grab is a useful tool. They also have Grab Eats, like Uber Eats. They have a delivery service and so forth. There's Grab everywhere. The other two sites for taxis, one is Vinasun and the other is BE. They're green taxis. And you can download those apps, and they will act like a ride share, and they'll pick you up right when you want to and so forth. However, those apps do require a Vietnam phone number, so you would need to have had a SIM card. SIM cards are really inexpensive, but we didn't use those because we were using our American number. Okay, once we were at our location and we went to other parts in Vietnam, we did take individual excursions and tours, and for that we use Viator. There we've used them all over the world, and you can kind of pick and choose and figure out what works best for you, and again, you can pay for it in advance. I didn't really plan those until we actually got to Vietnam, because a lot of times I don't know exactly what it is that I especially want to see. And because we've been to Vietnam before, some of the major attractions in the big cities we've been to. The other one, of course, is TripAdvisor, which then usually defaults then to Viator to plan your excursions and so forth. Okay, getting around the country. There are three major ways. There's bus, train, and plane. And as I mentioned before, when we took the train, we used Vietnam Railway, and their website in the U.S. Works just great. And we booked our train. We took an 8-hour train ride from Saigon to Nha Trang. Worked out just great, and they were very responsive. You paid in dollars. The site's in English. There was a change in scheduling, and they notified us well in advance of that. Said the train you're scheduled on has been rescheduled, and so it's going to be at this time instead of the other time. And so it was no problem. Yeah, the trains in Vietnam, you're going to be either what they call soft seat, or your hard seat, or a sleeper. We did soft seat, which would be sort of their version of first class, and they're like regular airline type seats, 2 and 2. Hard seat is like it says, and it's like being in a bus station somewhere sitting on a wooden hard bench, and for 8 hours that may not be your cup of tea. And then, of course, the sleeper cars, there are 4 berths, 4 bunks in a compartment. And because we were taking a daytime trip, we didn't do that. But we have talked to people who've taken the nighttime train, and it's kind of a hoot. They really enjoy that. Okay, and again, when you're booking your train, don't bother with some of the travel agencies or booking services. I did that at first, and I signed up and okay, great, and got a password, and then I tried to figure out what they were doing, and it was more trouble than it was worth, and I just didn't do it that way. So I okay, the heck with that. I'll just do it directly with Vietnam Railways, and that worked just fine. Okay, the same thing with air. I booked directly with Vietjet and Vietnam Airways. You can go through Google Flights or any of the other search engines and find out when planes are going where. And there are major Vietnam carriers are those two, Vietjet and Vietnam Airlines, and also Bamboo is another one. And the prices are very reasonable, and again, I did it online ahead of time. Everything was all squared away. When we get to, at least in major cities, what we'll do many times is we'll take the hop-on, hop-off bus. And we did that in both Ho Chi Minh City and in Hanoi. And that is a great thing to do if you're there for a few days, and for at least your first day, to find out, get your lay of the land, find out where the major attractions are, get a little bit of background of the history and so forth. And you all have these individual little earphones, and it's in the language of your choice. And sometimes it's a little cheesy, but in the music, but it gives you an idea, and you can kind of look around, and it helps you figure out, okay, oh, here's my hotel. Oh, there's where that is over there, and then you really feel more comfortable about it. Another thing to mention is the food. In Vietnam, I love Vietnamese food. I love pho, their noodle soup with beef in it, or sometimes chicken, but usually beef. I love their spring rolls. They just have a wonderful variety of food. The problem is, if you are on a restricted carbohydrate diet, or if you're diabetic, something like that, I found it almost impossible to keep blood sugar under control. Everything has rice or noodles in it, and those just make your glucose just spike. And even spring rolls, well, they're made with rice paper, and that's made from rice flour. And so, just imagine trying to, we went on a food tour, a couple food tours, and they asked us ahead of time, oh, do you have any kind of restrictions? Well, can you, more vegetables and less rice, please? Well, then one girl was very open about it. She says, well, most of the food is based around rice, so, suck it up. And so you just have to, it's like I say, it's almost impossible. Just eat as many vegetables as you can, and protein where you can find it, but it's just going to be really hard if that's a big problem for you. But it is delicious. And of course, tips, try to eat outside the tourist areas. That's going to be difficult sometimes if that's where your hotel is, and it's probably not cost effective to spend the money transporting yourself to another part of town to save a couple bucks on dinner. But it's just the way it is in any city. Things outside of the major tourist area are going to be a little bit less expensive. But you'll find lots of great affordable options in District 1. There's lots of restaurants, and you should have a great time there. One of the things about Ha Long Bay, I don't want to keep harping on it because I always seem to talk about how much that cost, that 2-night trip. There are lots of options you can take that are going to cost less than we did, so look into those. Okay, one last thing, and I like to talk about in a lot of our videos is, could you retire there? Could you retire in Vietnam? And there are a lot of videos that you'll notice on YouTube that talk about that, people who've retired there, or maybe people that are digital nomads and they're working there, and so they're there for a time. I guess that my answer to that is yes, of course you could. But I would not, especially if you're retirement age, I would not go to Vietnam to retire simply because it was cheap. Or it's not that cheap, it's cheap, but there are places that are cheaper. But don't go there just for that. There are a lot of places in the world, if expense is a big factor, that you could go to. I would go to Vietnam to retire if you're very interested in the culture, if of course your spouse or significant other is Vietnamese, if you have a real interest in their language and really want to devote some time to really immersing yourself in the culture, then of course go there. But to go there and just because it's cheap and be around other expats, you'll find that the Vietnamese language is challenging, but it's more challenging for other people than some people than it is for others. Their script to read isn't all that hard. You won't know what you're talking about, but it is a tonal language, so you'll get but you get used to where the tone should be, and they use the Roman script with lots of diacritical marks, so it depends how your intonation and so forth. But it might be a little more challenging than you want to go for. So that's just a final tip. Could retire. Don't go just because it's cheap. Go there because it's you really want to get to know the people and immerse yourself in the culture. Okay, those were the highlights of our trip and hopefully some tips for you that will be helpful should you plan to go to Vietnam, and I urge you to. Please leave comments and questions in the space below, and we look forward to seeing you in our next video. Bye-bye and have a nice Christmas.